You can't just look at this year's cycle. But if we don't do this, it's going to cost us more over time. And so there really is a benefit, especially when all the surrounding properties start to go up in value. And if we do it correctly, like other cities have, Nashville being the best example, Austin, there's tax values are skyrocketing all around the city, and new deals are coming in without any government incentive. And so it should build on itself with momentum. Even in a bad market, it should build on itself.
I love the Nashville example, because if I'm thinking about where to put my dollars as an investor, and if I'm investing for a full market cycle, if I can make an investment today that pays for itself, right, has positive cash flow from rental properties is where I'm going with this, but I can peg that investment to a market that is like Nashville 10 years ago. Yeah. Well, I've set myself up for a tremendous opportunity for growth, well beyond just what historical normal home price appreciation levels are, right? Like levels of home price appreciation around Nashville and the surrounding neighborhoods have skyrocketed because of the success of Nashville. And I think a lot of us think about Jacksonville as, Nashville 10 years ago or 15 years ago, right? And you bring up a really great point as far as how this incentive equation is different for Nashville today than it was 15 years ago. Could you tell people a little bit more about why we kind of peg ourselves to Nashville and maybe what some of the similarities are for them?
Yeah, I mean, the headline is Nashville's at the bottom of the 8th inning on the value that people are going to get over time, and Jacksonville's at the top of the 3rd. So that we have much more room to grow. Basically, those options are gone now in Nashville to have really dramatic investment growth. But our cities were about the same size 10 years ago, and the downtowns looked about the same, and the NFL teams were performing about the same quality of football 10 years ago. And look, these are southern cities that have bigger neighbors, i.e. Atlanta, Miami, Orlando, that just haven't had the love. And of course, Nashville kind of got their political leadership organized, their incentive packages together, and then they had a natural industry, the music industry that they built off of, and then it popped. And now their downtown values, they're literally building a Four Seasons downtown Nashville right now for no government incentive, because that's how well they've done. And Jacksonville just hasn't got there yet, but that's why, I'm a councilman, and why the rest of us are in this game is to align the leadership, get the incentives together, get us excited about what Jacksonville will look like in 10 and 15 years. And the football team should be playing better, because it couldn't play worse.
Are you gonna go personally responsible for that one too, Rory?
Hey, you know what? I will guarantee that our record over the next 20 games will be better than the last 20, because we haven't won one yet. So there's a pretty good chance we'll win one.
Yeah, bold moves from Rory Diamond. Yeah. The shipyards has been one of these things that people in Jacksonville talk about as, wow, I can't wait till we actually do something with this. But there have been a number of roadblocks, either people or politics or the real estate market, that have prevented us from doing this. But I mean, this is like I believe it's 40 acres on the riverfront in a major city that is just kind of like a blank canvas. And to be able to have the investment of the Jaguars, to be able to do that is incredibly important. But like, this is placemaking at its best for downtown Jacksonville. And
it anchors the whole area from one end where the stadium is all the way to downtown Jacksonville. It should be, it's kind of like putting the keystone in first, right? Yeah. And then all the rest of the pieces will come.
Yeah, and that was my point, right? In order to have a similar experience as a Nashville, right, you've got to have a couple of these flagship projects, right? So I think of the shipyards being that project there for a number of reasons, right? The placemaking component, also the investment from the Jags. Right. We want the Jags to be here for forever, right? To know that the owner of the Jags is putting $300 million doing this and expanding his network of Four Seasons potentially to come to Jacksonville, to be known as a Four Seasons city, is incredible for downtown Jacksonville. We don't have a 5-star hotel in Jacksonville. So, but I think you need a couple of these, right? So I think about this. I think about on the other end, the Landing and what we're doing in Brooklyn, right? Like spanning that riverfront is incredibly important. And I think you need the big ones. And I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Roy. You know me, I'm just shooting from the hip here. But, I think you need those big projects as well as the small ones, right? You need to make sure that the smaller wins that are happening inside, right? JWB is doing a few of these. There's a number of other developments that are happening. You need them both. You can't have kind of the overall goal of what you want with one, but not the other. So to have this happen now, to have this historic vote happen today, and I think it's looking pretty good as far as getting passed, is a big day for Jacksonville. And I wanted everybody to be aware of it.
Yeah, and it'll pass 19-0. It'll be unanimous. And look, this thing is it's gonna get built. And I think you're right, Greg. The infill efforts of all the other developers in JWB is so critical to the puzzle. First of all, it makes sense to do from a financial point of view, but you have to have something between two things.
Yeah.
And that's the critical piece there. So whether it's event space or new apartments or condos or whatever we're doing, yeah, all those coming along too. The other thing I love about Jacksonville right now is everybody says the size of our downtown is this problem because it's hard to get the density. I say, no. All these other downtowns are so hemmed in. They have so little space to expand once they get 5 signature projects and there's nowhere to go. Asheville, North Carolina, great example. It's done. There's nothing else you can do. You have to go over highways now and all the rest. Jacksonville has plenty of space to keep going up and up and up.
Bring up a good point there. I was doing a little bit of research on Nashville. As you can tell, I love that comparison with Jacksonville, and just some stats that I was looking at. In Jacksonville, we have 7,000 residents living downtown, and our the amount of space that we have downtown is 3.9 square miles. Nashville has about 15,000 people living downtown today. Was much different 10 years ago, but now they have 15,000 people living downtown in 1.8 square miles. Yeah. So the goal here, and we've talked with Daniel Davis and others here on the show recently talking about the city's goal to get to 10,000 residents. Well, you can see why we have that goal as a city. It's because we are trying to emulate and model the experience that Nashville has had. And we're getting close, right? It wasn't too long ago that we had 3,500 people living downtown. And it was that way for a long time.
Yeah, and I've got good news for you. I'm the chair of land use and zoning. So all development in the city kind of goes through my committee. And we have approved over 13,000 units, right? So that's coming. And already under construction or underway with financing is 4,400 units downtown alone. That includes the South Bank and the North Bank. So we're going to shoot past 10,000 over the next 2.5 years. No problem. That should easily happen. And that's just units. There's typically, unless you're a dork like me who lives with just my dog, there's usually more than one person living in a unit. So we should easily clear this.
Wow.
Rory,
I mean, that's really critical.
Yeah. Before the show, we were just talking about how this shipyards vote has been like multiple generations in the making and how it hasn't passed. And now we're on the cusp of, downtown hitting the tipping point, Four Seasons Hotel showing up, right? Yes. This like critical density that seems to be happening all around us that makes us a very apt comparison to Nashville's previous trajectory with some upside as well in there. That all sounds phenomenal as somebody that owns rental property in Jacksonville and knowing that this is going to affect the macro economy. What's the difference? It sounds like things are getting easier in city council and in incentivizing these economic developments. And I just want to know how do you make it easier for this type of stuff to happen? Because it seems like y'all are doing a really good job.
Well, I think most investors want predictability and most developers want predictability, which is so they can build in a timeline and they can build in a timeline with their financing and any other piece of the puzzle that they need to go from idea to this thing is finished. And so a couple of things we've done, I think, well, which is now formalized and made very transparent our incentive packages and how we do things, whether it's our downtown investment authority or any other entity that works with us. So that's one good thing. Two, we're also making it faster to get through. So it's not fast enough yet for me. I'm about to propose legislation that will give the city 60 days to either thumbs up or thumbs down something. And if they can't move it fast enough, it'll be permitted by right. So it'll just go. So the pressure will be on the city to move. So do things like that and you align it and you can make predictable how long things take and be faster than other cities and be more efficient and be very welcoming to outside investors. Something that we haven't talked about yet, but Related Properties is one of the best developers in the entire world. And they do signature towers. They've transformed Miami, they transformed Fort Lauderdale, and now they are building a beautiful tower on our South Bank. And when they come in, they tend to do one property and then they do another, and then they do another, and they do another. And when I was working with them, they said, listen, this was welcoming for outside investors. Jacksonville was a place where we wanted to do business, and we're going to keep doing business. And I was like, then we've done our job. I was like, this is great.